Ben, what's up, brother? Great to see you.
Ryan, great to see you too. This is a long, long time in the making, so I'm excited to spend this time with you and your listeners.
Yeah, we've been dancing around on the fringes of similar circles for years now, so I knew it was just a matter of time before we made this happen.
Yeah, and it literally is years. Some people like they say that it's been a few months. Like this has literally been years. So I'm very excited for the conversation.
It is interesting because I have a lot of people that I would love to have on the podcast. Obviously, I've got 52 weeks a year, so it's 50 interviews that I can do per year. That's it. And then I have a bunch of people that reach out. So sometimes like, where do I make this happen? There's so many great people I want to talk with, and it's just hard to fit everything in.
Oh no, but that's life these days, But that's life when you attack the way that you do and you believe in what you're doing, is that it attracts, people to want to be part of what you're doing. I think there's a statement around that is so powerful for people today, because there's just too many people, and I'm sure we'll get into this, that are waiting on the sidelines to see what's going to happen with the economy, or is the media right or are they wrong, rather than just continuing to stay committed to what their beliefs are and the difference that they want to make.
Yeah, and it seems like people just kind of waffle to and fro based on, to your point, what the current economic climate is and who the president is and what the status of X, Y, and Z is. And if I say this, will somebody get upset? And I just wish more people would act on what they want to do, or at least have a little voice maybe in the back of their head saying you should, and then just go do it. Like forget about everything else, just go do it.
Yeah, but the reality is people have that little voice that makes an excuse, and it's far easier to live to our excuses than it is to be clear on what our standards are, than to operate on our standards, which when you really break it down, right, it really doesn't make any sense, because when you do the things you know you need to do to be successful, you feel good. And
Yeah.
when you listen to that voice, whether it's 30 minutes later, 2 hours later, a week later, you have guilt. It actually increases your fears. It increases your doubts. It increases your uncertainties about yourself. And so we listen to that voice because we think it's easier, but it's actually making your life far more difficult than it needs to be. Life and success is about great discipline in doing the little things you need to do over and over and over again, and they make you feel good. So why wouldn't you want to listen to that voice and keep doing the things that you should be doing, to your point?
It's it's so relevant. I was thinking about it Monday night and Tuesday night. I trained jujitsu, and I know how good I feel when I go. I feel good. I meet with guys who are motivated, they're ambitious, they're disciplined, they're dedicated to a craft. I get done. I feel banged up, but I feel good mentally and physically. That's this evening. I'm already making up excuses in my mind right now at 11 o'clock a.m. about like, how can I get out of this? Is there something else I could be doing? And I love it. And I still make excuses not to do it.
I hope the gym has electrical issues and they send me a text, all classes are
Exactly.
canceled tonight. You're like, you're waiting for something.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? So we must get something out of our excuses. Is it just comfort and mediocrity and complacency? Is there something else at play here?
Well, in our work in sports and in business, and I say this very humbly, it's not to impress anybody. And, what you decide to share about my bio and resume, all those things that you mentioned, you're like trying to highlight the good stuff. But the reality is, I still have two coaches. I'm reading books every day. I get knocked down. I'm far from figuring it out, even though we do have the opportunity on a daily basis to work with champions in business and in sports. I'm still trying to figure it out. But one thing we have found is that the highest performers, they don't allow their feelings to dictate how they show up.
Mm.
So many people have heard me talk about for years this concept of standard over feelings. Don't allow your feelings to dictate how you show up. You have to choose to live to the standard every single day. It's not easy, Ryan, and you know it. It's not easy to say, here's how many days I'm going to train this week, and to train every single one of those days. But if you really want to be successful, you have to do what you say you're going to do. And the world today is made up of all of these individuals who tell you how great they want to be. But then when we have a conversation with their action, we find out they really don't want it that bad. And they actually live to their feelings far more than they live to the standards that they know that if they live to those standards, That's what would actually cause them to be successful. Yet they look at their favorite actors, actresses, entrepreneurs, athletes, and that's what those people do. They are where they are because they don't make excuses, they don't live to their feelings, and they consistently, with great discipline, do what it takes to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I went to the fights. There was some fights in Southern Utah over the weekend, and I went to some fights, and somebody I hadn't seen for a while came up, and he's like, "Man, you look good. You look strong. You look fit. You look good. What have you been doing?" And I'm like, "Really? Like, do you not know what I've been doing? Not because you follow me, but because you know what it takes to be fit. Like, everybody knows what it takes to be fit. Everybody knows what it takes to run a successful business. Sure, there's nuances, but if you're not going into the gym every day, the nuances really don't matter. And it's funny because people are looking for that secret pill. Like, what have you been doing? I'm like, well, I've been to the gym every single day without exception for 6 months. So, like, that's it. There's no guesswork here.
And that, and that's the interesting thing. They want you to say that it's a magic pill. They want you to say that somebody sold you some magic drug to make it easier and to allow them to live to their excuses and to not have to go to the gym. We all know what we need to do. For everybody listening, if I were to say, let's segment this one area of your life, what do you need to do every day? Not once a week, not twice a week, not when you feel like it, but what do you need to do in order to remain consistent and successful in that area? Most people know exactly what they need to do, but we choose to not do those things. And when you really look at the science of the brain, when you make those little decisions and choices, it actually triggers the release of dopamine in your body and you actually feel good.
Mm.
So the reason why, like when you do what you say you're going to do, you feel good, it makes you want to do it more. Like logically, we have to get out of our own way, recognize that nobody is coming to do the work for you. Nobody's going to allow you to put the work on a credit card. You have to choose to do the work. Otherwise, you're never going to have that feeling that you're accomplishing what you're able to accomplish. And it's just, I'm becoming more direct with this, Ryan, because sometimes in my work as a coach, it's frustrating because you know exactly what you need to do, but you're choosing to not do it. So one of the things I encourage people to do is you need to think about the example that you are for somebody. You need to
Mm.
think about maybe the little eyes that are watching you make those excuses. And you think those little eyes aren't watching you. I promise those little eyes are watching every single move. And the habits and the behaviors of those little eyes, or if you don't have children yet, that's what I'm referencing, the little eyes. There's a colleague that's watching you. There's a friend that's watching you. There's somebody that's watching you, watching how you show up. And you have to ask yourself, are you going to accept showing up that way? And is that the example that you want to be for somebody that might be watching you?
Yeah, that's powerful. My 9-year-old daughter, she's so funny. She shows her love for me through feeding me. She's like her mom, and she wants to feed me sweets and treats and this and that. And she bought this little bag of saltwater taffy, and she's like, "Here, Dad, have this." And I know that she's trying to show that she loves me. And the
Mm,
other day I said, "No, hon, I don't want that." And she said, "Well, why not?" Because she thought I was rejecting her love, her gift, right?
mm.
And which is hard. So usually I eat it, but I got thinking, and this was important to your point. It's like, she needs to see me be disciplined. She needs to see me not eat that. And so I explained to her, I said, "Hey, I know that you want to give that to me because you love me and you care about me, and that's how you're showing that. But I want you to know that I'm sticking with a schedule with my food. And I want you to see what that looks like, that sometimes we have to give up things that we really, really want in order to have something that's important to us down the road." So but it is challenging because I see her sweet eyes and I see the way she gives it to me. And I'm like, and it's good. And I'm like, I really want that, but we have to resist.
I'd love to bring this up because I think it's in alignment with the conversation. I originally had learned about you through my relationship with Andy Frisella.
Right.
And with Andy, he creates 75 Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Most amazing program. This is not a challenge. This is not a physical fitness contest. This is a program that when you choose to follow through and do it, it will absolutely change your life. And here I am. This is the work that I do. And I had already had a crazy workout where I'd done it every day for years in a row, and I still do it every single day. And, I made excuses, right? And I was like, why do I need to do 75 hard? I'm a mental conditioning coach. I've got my own stuff that I do. And finally, I was like, man, if this is working for Andy, I need to challenge myself to go to the next level. And I already told you I have coaches, I read books, I'm coachable. Man, I did 75 hard and I finished, and it was life changing. I completed the entire Live Hard program. I'm now getting ready to start phase 1 of doing the Live Hard program again. And here's what I find fascinating about the program. For guys like, I'll just use myself as an example. When I use that app and I can get that shot of dopamine to do I read those 10 pages, there is nothing that is going to stop me from clicking that little button and knowing that I did the 10 pages. But here's what's fascinating, Ryan. People will complete 75 hard, and then they get back into their regular life. And because there's no damn button to click, they fall short of doing the most basic, simple things. And we have got to stop overlooking the lessons that we learn when we go through a program like 75 Hard and learn to say, how does this apply in other areas of my life? Like, you need a freaking box to check to tell your daughter or your son that you love them every day. You need a freaking box to check to tell your wife, I love you, babe, and you're beautiful. Like, we need to just learn that these behaviors and consistency is what changes your life. I'm not a perfect father. I'm not a perfect husband, but I do little things every day to try to be the best husband and father I can be. But I don't need a box to be able to check those things. And so I love those shots of dopamine, but I also love the discipline that programs like that create. So look, I don't, Andy doesn't charge for 75 hard, so I can't be an affiliate charging for 75 hard. The damn program is free. But like, Ryan, why do you think people are that way? I mean, it's fascinating to me. And I know as disciplined as you are, don't you find that fascinating? Like, you could literally go through 75 hard and click the button, but then we get into your life and you miss the most basic stuff because there's no box to check and there's no threat of going back to day one.
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think number one is, at least for me, I'm just going to speak for me, is I get so overwhelmed. I really did want to ask you about this too, because I get so overwhelmed with, relationships with my kids and business. And then I'm coaching two sons' baseball teams and, answering these emails. And then this person wants me to start this program and this person wants me to do a collaborative event with them. And it all is really exciting stuff. And I get so inundated with it that the things that are seemingly insignificant, like just telling my daughter I love her, is just gets overlooked. I hate to say but that's the truth. Like, they seem like it's not that pressing, but the next event that I'm doing is. I wish I didn't have to speak that way, but that's the reality of where I'm at anyways.
Well, I've learned over time that the way that I'm wired and most high performers are wired is that when you understand the recipe that causes you to have success, you show up every day wanting to attack that recipe. You want to attack that process. And so one of the things that this worked for me, I'm not one of those coaches and speakers that, that decided a couple of years ago this would be a cool profession to get into. I mean, I've been doing this for 17 years. And one of the tools that we've used the entire time is what I call your Prizefighter day. And it actually breaks up the decisions and choices that individuals make to determine what does it look like for you to win every day in your life, personally, professionally, and in your service to others. And actually writing down not results, but what are the behaviors? What are the disciplines? What are the choices that when you make them, they will cause you to win when you start stacking those days on top of each other. And I've shared it this way for years because there's far too many people who say, oh, I'm going to work really hard for a week and then I'll pay attention to my kids. Really? Like that's the father or mother you want to be? You want to go and work really hard for 2 weeks and then show back up to your house and say, I love you guys? And we have to understand people are watching your behavior. And what you say, what comes out of your mouth goes in your ears, and that's what you believe. And that's how you take your action. So if you're one of those people who have been making this excuse, well, I have to work really hard, coming out of your mouth, I won't have time to see the family over the next 2 weeks. Well, guess what? You're not going to see the family, nor is it a priority to you. But if you decide I will intentionally design what it looks like for me to attack every day. And under no circumstance will I allow excuses. If there's an emergency or something happened that pulls me away from it, I will deal with that then. But I will not allow self-talk or silly excuses to not allow me to tell my kids that I love them, to not be present and focused when I'm at home. I will take it to not get a workout in because I just don't feel like it, to not make my sales calls, to review my pipeline for 15 minutes, to not stay in control of the things that are in your control. And it's excuses, because most of the coaches and speakers that do the type of work that I do, Ryan, they tell people that balance doesn't exist and you attack one thing and find time for another. The only reason why those coaches do that is because they have no discipline. Take a look at their life. They lack discipline in the areas that they tell you to avoid. And so I think it's important that you pay attention to. Look at Sean Whalen. He teaches what he calls the core four. At the end of the day, I recently had him on our podcast, The Burn. I said to Sean, I said, core four is really Prizefighter Day.
Of course. And I
Prizefighter
have
Day is
something
really
similar. It's all the same.
It's all, it's Andy Frisella's Power List. Core four is Andy Frisella's Power List. I don't give a shit what you call it, but I've reached this point, Ryan, where it's like, I want to help people grab a hold of your life and stop making the excuses. And I know this vein starts popping out of my neck and people are like, why is this dude so intense? I just want you to write your best story of your life. And if for me, you need me to apologize, because all I'm asking you to do, no matter how many championship rings you see behind my head that I've been blessed to win with teams, no matter how many championships I've helped people win in boardrooms, all I mention to those people that get to wear those rings, all I mention to those people in boardrooms is I want you to look yourself in the mirror one day at a time and say, today I gave it my very best. And if you can do that, nobody can ever take that away from you. Nobody can ever ask any more of you than you giving it your very best. And when you do that, the byproduct is winning at very high levels. And it's just frustrating because, Ryan, guys like you and I, we know that to be the truth, but far too many people are fighting it today. So I'm not holding back anymore. So if this is too much for some people, I'm not going to apologize, because I'm just asking you. I know Ryan encourages you. We just want you to be your best one day at a time.
I just want to be my best. I mean, I feel like, I talk with other guys about wanting to improve, but, I listen to guys like yourself and Andy and other people. Wayland is an early mentor of mine and has become a friend. I need it just as much as anybody else, even somebody who knows, like, I know what I should be doing. I know how I should be showing up. I know there's a lot of people who are watching me, and yet I still fall short. I'm curious why you think we allow our excuses to get in the way, even though we know we're going to feel better. I think part of it maybe is that there's usually some element of truth to our excuses. Like, hey, I'm really busy at work right now, so that's why I can't work out. And so, yeah, you might be busy, but that's not the entire truth, but that's what you're using. Like, how do we mitigate our excuses and step away from those when we know we're making them?
So we can really go deep here, and I think it'll be powerful and deliver some action items for people that maybe they didn't expect. And once again, I just want to repeat, I still have coaches. I'm trying to figure it out. There's a couple of things we've figured out in doing this for 17 years with some of the highest performers to ever walk the face of the earth in business and in sports. And one of the things that I found, similar to when I mentioned, a lot of coaches and speakers, leaders, they lack discipline, yet they try to lead. They'll never reach their highest level of leadership until they become disciplined in the areas that they ask of others. It's just the way that it is. And one of the things we've also found is that everybody talks about why and purpose, which is so unbelievably important, but it's not enough. What I've found is that the highest performers, they actually have this burn. It's an underlying burn inside of them. It's like this extreme fire and clarity that ignites their why and purpose every day, that then causes them to be disciplined every day. Not some days, not occasionally, but when they think of that burn, it becomes this, I can't not do what I said I'm going to do. So for me, I can share with everybody, I had to grow up fast. Parents divorced when I was 6 months old, never knew them together. My mother had a rare muscle disease called amyloidosis. Her last year living, we had 24-hour nursing care in our house. I would
Mm.
watch my mother come to the dinner table with an IV stand, sometimes one nurse or two nurses, just to be able to make it to the dining room table. And my mother would look me dead square in the eyes and say, honey, how was your day at school? Every day, Ryan. And my mother passed 11 days before my 8th birthday.
Mm.
But what my mother left behind were some of the most powerful lessons I ever could have learned from anybody, because these two little eyes were watching her. So you wonder, why does he talk about those little eyes? Because these little eyes watched her make it to that dining room table. These little eyes have now had the opportunity to read her journal where she wrote, beat the statistics, beat the odds, live with the disease that is chronic and fatal, believe in yourself, combat anything, purpose in life. These are things that are in a journal in my safe in my house. My mother's words, her tears are on that page. Her handwriting is on that page. I was able to get more connected to my mom. I mean, your mom passes 11 days before your 8th birthday. There's so much I remember, but those words in that journal have taught me so much about her. And Ryan, it's made me appreciate living one day at a time. And my mother passed away at 38 years old. She taught me the greatest life lesson I've ever learned. It's not how long you live, it's how you choose to live your life. I'm 44 years old. That means I've been given 6 extra years that my mother never got, and I've gotten to live those one day at a time. So the last thing I'm going to do is waste a day. Ryan, that has created a burn inside of me. I am not saying I'm perfect. I will never be perfect. I'm not saying I have perfect days. I make mistakes every day, but I will not allow a day to go by where I don't say I will make the most of this day. I have challenge, I have adversity, but I will attack every single one of these days. And I think all of us, we have that burn that when you care enough to find that level of burn, you will not waste your days anymore.
Mm. How do you, because look, I appreciate you sharing that story. That's a powerful story. And I know there's a lot of guys that have gone through similar type experiences. And I know that there's millions of people who have gone through similar experiences to that and have used situations like yours or differently to self-destruct, to crumble, to fall apart, to be a victim of whatever their circumstances were. So what differentiates you from turning that into a burn into versus somebody who uses that as an opportunity to burn themselves up and self-implode?
I think one of the things, and I've mentioned it twice, and now I'm going to mention it a third time so you realize how important it is to me, is coaching and mentorship.
Mm.
You know, I was blessed to have coaches in my life and mentors in my life and teachers in my life who were like, they would look at my behavioral reactions, my attitude as a young boy after losing my mom. And then your dad moves back in and he's a drug addict, alcoholic, bipolar, manic depressive, passed out on the couch every day. Now I'm 8 years old. I mean, Ryan, childhood's going great, right? And
Yeah,
so it's
rough.
like, this is my life. Yet you have these teachers who are like, yeah, this kid doesn't know how to emotionally react, but like, the kid's broken. Let me help this kid. And so I learned at a very young age, like, when people give you that helping hand and they give you that love, you don't have to do it alone. And damn it, Ryan, there are far too many people who are trying to do it alone in life. I mean, I always say, you mentioned coaching 2 of your kids' baseball teams, but you can allow little kids to go and you just throw the balls and the bats out and say, okay,
Here you
kids,
go.
go have fun, play the game. Like, we've all had coaches our entire lives, but we become adults. And all of a sudden you think like, well, I'll just do it on my own. My ego is so big. I don't need coaching. And look, this is not a solicitation for coaching, because my one-on-one coaching work, I'm booked. I mean, we have other coaches on our team, but I'm not taking on additional coaching clients. I don't care if your coach is one of your friends who becomes your accountability partner at the gym, who makes sure that you actually get your ass to the gym and it's free for you to drive that accountability. Call that person your coach. All I'm saying is stop trying to do it by yourself. And I think these individuals, we get lost sometimes. And I've been there too, Ryan. But I've learned over time that, like, I need that. I need the coaches. I need the accountability. I want the help. I don't want to do it by myself. And I think when people face challenge and adversity, they try to do it by themselves. They don't connect to that burn or fire that causes them to want to fight. And they end up going down this path that they don't have to go down if you would stop trying to do it by yourself.
Hmm. One of the questions I get very often is, how do you find these coaches? You know, guys know, the guys listen to this podcast because I preach that as well. And I have coaches in my life. they ask, how do you find that person? What do you look for? Because they know how important it is. So what would you say to that guy?
Well, I think, those are situations where you know who they are, you know what they look like, you know where their websites are, there's going to be a fee that's charged for it, and you got to do the research, and then you got to take the action. And I'm just going to be direct with this because you're asking the number of people that reach out and they're like, hey, like I'd love to talk to you about coaching. And by the time you get to the end of the conversation, like they don't want to pay anything for coaching. It's like, well, what do you think this is? Like
Mm-hmm.
I have proven techniques where I know I can help you drive revenue in your business. And that's the reason why the head football coach at Kansas State, Chris Kleiman, we've won national championships together, conference championships together. I've been with that man for 9 years. 9 years because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've got business clients that I've worked with for 8 years. People, when I started working with them, their companies were at 15 million of revenue, and now they're over 100 million of revenue. So I've been coaching with them for 8 years because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. If I have a relationship in coaching where something isn't working, I get fired. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we're different than most coaches. I don't sign like a year-long contract. You got to give me a year. I say it's month to month. Ryan, if something isn't working, then I'm fired. And I want you to be open and say, like, man, this is not meeting my expectations. I don't think we're a good fit, and you're fired. There's no guaranteed you have to work with me over this period of time. And so I think you have to find that coach that's doing it for the right reasons. You got to find that coach who doesn't need more business. And then you got to find that coach that it may take an investment on your part, but without that investment, you may never have the opportunity to see how great you can be.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the things we've done with our coaching practice, I mean, we've got live group coaching, we've got one-on-one coaching for individuals who can work with other coaches that don't charge what I charge. But I mean, there's so many different ways to do this. But Ryan, people fight just getting started. And so go look at my platform, go look at somebody else's platform, go look at anybody's platform that's in this business. Heck, reach out to Ryan. Maybe Ryan will say, I want to be the person who wants to do coaching work with you, right? But like the reality is, Ryan, people have to stop deciding to not take action. And what was the first thing I said? Go find an accountability partner for free.
Mm-hmm.
Go say to your partner, my first job ever out of college, I was a paper broker in Chicago selling newsprint, commercial print paper, like Steve Carell out of The Office. I mean, but like I didn't have money for a coach at that period of time. But like we built like the sales team, we built this accountability. We'd have contests and we just, bullshit with each other and find ways to challenge each other. And it pushed us to grow. Like at the end of the day, we were coaching each other. We didn't call it then. But like there shouldn't be any excuses. You have to welcome not doing it by yourself, and you got to go attack it and find those people that are doing this for the right reasons. Not somebody who announced last week that they want to be a coach or a year ago wanted to be a coach and they're fighting to make it. Like go find somebody with a track record of success, because otherwise, why would you take advice from somebody who's just trying to make it themselves? They don't even know if their techniques work.
Right. It is interesting when you hear people say the money thing. I'll often be met with, aren't you doing this out of the goodness of your heart? That's one I hear, or, or the like. But it is interesting with one of our groups called the Iron Council. Often I hear from guys who are like, well, I don't want to pay to make friends. And my response is, we're not here
Like
to be your
Ryan,
friends.
but that's an excuse, right? Like
Totally. Definitely.
even though you and I are just finally having this conversation, like I heard you with Frisella and I knew like this guy's disciplined, this guy attacks. You've been doing this for such a long years and years and years. Like you have what it takes to help people. So the reason why they say that to you is because they want to fight the help that you can provide. And you're like me. I mean, I've listened to you for years. So you're like me. You have a big heart. You're not going to take somebody's money to take somebody's money. Like if you can't help somebody or you can't provide the platform that's actually going to help them and guide them to a better life, I've fired clients because they don't follow through and do it. I literally say to them like, look, I'm not taking a payment for coaching anymore because you don't listen to the coaching. And
Yeah.
until you decide to listen to the coaching, like this coaching's over. And people are like, are you serious? You're firing me? And it's like, well, yeah, because you're not taking the coaching. And so if you're not coachable, I'm not interested in collecting money from you just to say I'm collecting money. If you're not growing, I don't feel good about that. I know you're the same way.
I am. In fact, I don't do individual coaching for that reason. I got so tired of having guys who said they wanted to do things, and I would share with them what to do and would give them a framework and we'd have discussions and spend a lot of time and energy into making sure that their plans were right. And they just wouldn't do it. I'm like, look, I could collect that money, or I could just go focus on something that A, I enjoy, and B, something people will actually do something with. So the individual coaching route, look, I know there's people out there who will be incredible, but I decided not to go that route for that exact reason. I was so tired of seeing people take my time and energy and not do anything with it. Yeah, they'd give me a paycheck, but that wasn't enough for me.
And I'll tell you, we even see it in the group setting, right? You've got your group, we've got our group. And this is the part that drives me crazy. People will reach out to our team and say, my needs aren't getting met. I don't know this group setting. I don't know if this is for me. And it always boils down to, let's take the last 30 days.
Mm.
Over the last 30 days, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for following through and doing what you know you need to do to be successful? And they're like, I'm a 6. And it's like, is it the freaking group, or is it the fact that 60% of the time you do what you're supposed to do and 40%? So Ryan, it goes back to, people have to stop thinking, because I pay a fee to be in your group, I will be successful. If you don't do the work, nothing is going to change.
Mm.
And so the key has to be, when somebody says, these are the tools that work, I can help you design this, these are the action steps, and you're left with action items on a daily basis that are going to cause you to be successful. At some point in time, you need to choose to make those decisions, to be disciplined in those decisions, to allow that dopamine to run free, and you know it feels good, and start doing what it takes to be successful, and stop living to your feelings and stop living to your excuses.
Yeah, one other thing, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate here, but I am trying to explore all these veins about why people don't take action. I think that's the common theme about what we're talking about here. I have heard, tell me what you think about this. Quite a few people, they'll say, they'll either vocalize or believe internally that if they can't move the needle today to the degree that they want, they won't even start. I saw this all the time in my financial planning practice. I would meet with prospective clients, and we would work out a strategy or an investment plan. And because they couldn't do exactly what they wanted to do in that moment, they'd say, well, I'll wait until I'm in a different position. It would be like saying, I'm going to wait to go to the gym before I get in shape. It's a very strange phenomenon, but I've seen it all the time. Do you run across that?
So one of the things, when I was a financial advisor, which was after I was a paper broker, moved back to St. Louis, and I was an advisor for 10 years, absolutely loved it. That's what actually created my first speaking engagement opportunities back in 2006. I used to always share with people, let's say if there's savings, we did their full planning analysis and they needed to save $2,500 a month. Well, to your point, that individual wanting to save $2,500 a month, when their disciplines to save were so bad, there was no way in hell that person could save $2,500 a month. That was still the number based upon, and you remember all this, right? When they wanted to retire, how much money they need, how long. The number is the number. Like, you told me when you wanted all of these things, that's your number. And people would then choose to do nothing, which made no sense. So I used to always say, let's crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And even if we could build the discipline over our first year together for you to save $500 a month, even though that's 20% of what you need to save, it's better than not doing anything at all. If we start at 500 and then we get to 1,000, if it takes us 3 years to get to the $2,500 a month to help you hit your financial goals, I promise you it's going to be worth it. But I cannot allow you to be those individuals who do nothing and then expect that one day they're going to retire. It's just not going to happen. And so what ended up happening was, it then became the psychology of, they knew I was in this for the long haul. It wasn't this short-term fix. And so then, you're meeting in a year, you're meeting in 2 years, and they can see that and they can understand that. And that's also one of the reasons why, Ryan, and I say this, very humbly, but I performed at a very high level in that space, which is what created these opportunities to speak and start coaching, is because I was fine to make a smaller sale if I was doing the right thing for the client. And I was willing to outwork the people who are just trying to go hunt these big elephants. And then what you end up finding is you find a bunch of elephants that want to work with you. You find a bunch of loyal clients that want to work with you. And when you just work hard in life, things tend to work out.
It's a lot like the some of the best baseball, the best hitters in the world are the guys that get on base every time they get up to bat. It's not about the home runs. It's how often can you get yourself on base? I talked with our boys and I was teaching them how to take a hit, turn into it, take the hit. Most of them bail and they get scared and freak out. I said, no, turn into it, take the hit in the back. And so we were walking through that a little bit with them. And they were kind of questioning it because they said, what did they say? One of them said, well, why would I want to get hit when I can try to hit the ball and get a base hit? I said, getting hit is guaranteed on base. And I don't care how we do it, as long as it's moral,
right,
legal, and ethical, you need to get your butt on base. So I'd much rather take the 100% chance of you getting on base than the maybe you'll hit a home run on the next pitch. And I think if more of us recognized and realized that it's not about that next huge sale, it's about the phone call that you make today to a prospective client. It's not about you hitting a new PR at the gym. It's that you actually went to the gym and did the reps. It's just not as sexy, so it's harder to get people to buy into it.
But that's the process piece. That's the work piece. We as humans were naturally ingrained. I want the result right now, which is really what you were speaking to in the question, like, give me the result or I'm not getting started. But the reality is it's the discipline to the process that drives the result that you ultimately want. I had the opportunity to work for Coach Saban for 5 years at Alabama, 2 national championships, and all these amazing relationships that have come with it. And 2 of the greatest lessons that I learned from Coach Saban are the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. That's not, hey, you have to win and that's it. No, it's the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. That is a process-based statement that he would ingrain in our minds, that if you're sloppy in one area, you're going to be sloppy in another. So we might as well do it the right way. And then he used to always say, we don't do things until we get them right. We do things until we can't get them wrong. How often do you teach somebody a lesson? One time they hear it, they go, I got it. What the hell do you mean? How could you possibly have it? I just told you what it is. Like, you haven't tested it, you haven't tried it, you haven't faced adversity with it. You don't have it, but we naturally want the result. I got it, I'm going to go get the result. You may have to try it hundreds of times. And so the things that you learn from the greats, I mean, this is arguably the greatest coach to ever coach anything. And I got to be there for 5 years working with the team. They're 15 times a year. And what you learn is it's all about the process. And these days people say, embrace the process, trust the process. I always say, you better be prepared to attack the process. You can trust it and believe in it all you want, but if you don't attack it and do the work every day, you're going to fall short of consistent, continual peak performance.
I'm gonna snag that. I'm taking notes here, and I wrote that one down. Attack the process. It's a lot more assertive than just believe it, just have faith in it. Yeah, sure you should, but if you're attacking, that faith will come as a natural outcome of you doing the work.
I've been saying attack the process for 15 years because I've always believed it all comes down to the process. And Ryan, you believe in the same. I believe in the same. Andy Frisella believes in the same. You don't wake up in the morning and stare up at the sky and say, dear God, I hope I look amazing at the end of 75 hard. You actually have to do the work every day that meet the requirements of the 75 hard program. It's the same thing with your work. You know what you need to do. You better be willing to attack the process. Otherwise, at some point in time, you have to stop telling people how great you want to be and how successful you're going to be if you're unwilling to do the work. And once again, I know I'm being direct. It seems like it's in your face, but remember, all I'm trying to do is get you to show up and be your best one day at a time. Mm-hmm. And to connect to your burn or your fire or your passion or the person you're sacrificing for, where you say, those little eyes are watching me, like, I will be my best. I can't be a poor example. Or maybe there's somebody that sacrificed for you and that's your burn, and you say, I will not waste the sacrifice that they made. So whatever form it comes in, at some point in time, don't let that fire go out. Light that fire. Let that fire keep getting bigger and stronger and more potent every single day, and just keep doing the work. That's how winning is done. People don't want to hear that. They want to hear the easy way, but that is how winning is done.
There's another powerful component of the process is that when things don't go your way or they're not working out, you can actually look to your process and see where the breakdown is. Because most people don't
100.
have those systems. They're just kind of winging it, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
It's like when I share a prize fighter day, right? I'm giving a keynote, or it's in a group coach, or whatever the environment is. I'll teach the prize fighter day. You can find the prize fighter day in our mental toughness playbook, books that I've written. I mean, I talk about it all the time. And I always encourage people, once you identify, here are the things personally, professionally, and in my service to others. When I do these things every day, these are daily choices. When I do them, I will win. But then people forget to do what you just said. In a week, go back. I always say run a 7-day test. If this is your first time ever trying something like this, don't just assume what you picked a week ago was right. Let's test it in a week and go back and say, okay, the personal things I wrote down, was it right, or do I need to add a little more? Professionally, did it actually challenge me over the last week, or do I need to add a little bit extra? The of service, did it actually make a difference in somebody's life, or do I need to change it? And if it needs to be changed, change it. But once you nail it and you start attacking that every single day, you will see a shift in your life. You'll see a shift in how you feel, and you will absolutely see a shift in results. But then when those results come, here's the key to high performance: don't be seduced by success. When you achieve that success, don't be seduced. Remember, the reason why you fail that way is because the work that you did all those days in a row, stacking them to generate that result. If you want to continue to feel that, just keep attacking one day at a time. Ryan, we know that it's simple. Everybody knows that it's simple. The hard part is choosing to be disciplined. Identifying it, that's the easy part. But then making sure that you're doing the right things and you're doing them with great discipline.
What are your thoughts? So you said it's hard to be disciplined, and I've said things like that too. I actually shy away from that language anymore because I think in our minds we tend to make it harder than it needs to be. And so I've told people when they say, well, it's hard, or it's like, no, it's not hard. You're choosing to make it hard. It's actually it's not only simple, it's also easy. And what are your thoughts about using that type of language or the thought process behind it?
I could absolutely see where you're coming from. Makes me think about shifting and not saying that anymore, because I probably need to follow it up with, see, I'm coachable. You got to follow it up with, but when the environment is right, it then becomes unbelievably easy to execute, right? So I remember when Ed Milet had me on his podcast, and Ed's become a dear, dear friend. When I was on his podcast, Ed was like, you got to tell him what you told me about your alarm clock. And I said, well, my alarm clock is my phone, but here's the difference. My phone is not on my nightstand. My phone is in the bathroom. So I actually have to get up. I have to go to another room in order to turn off my alarm. When you look on my alarm on my phone, it says Janet Fishman Newman Legacy. You can actually name your alarm. So here's my mother's name. That's my alarm. So what have I done? In order to trigger my desire to attack being disciplined in the day and to not live to my excuses, I get up out of bed. Here's what I live for, my burn every day, and to be an example for my kids and for my wife, and to be the best that I can be, fueled by my mom. If I see my mother's name, Janet Fishman Newman Legacy, and I've kind of had a light jog to the bathroom so my wife doesn't kill me and I don't wake her up, what do you think the odds are that I'm going to hit the snooze button and get back into bed? It's not happening.
Right.
So I think it comes down to, you have to create the environment that causes you to execute.
That's really cool. As you were saying that, I thought, well, what would my alarm say? And immediately I should change in there. Your kids are watching you. That would be mine. Your kids are watching you.
I love it.
Yeah, that's powerful. You've talked a little bit about.
So hold on one second. I want to grab it. I want to pull this through. So now Ryan's in the middle of the day. So that's his reminder in the morning. He sees it. No way. I don't care how damn cozy those sheets were. Ryan is not hitting the snooze button and going back to bed. He reads that. But here's what we know about the human mind. You're going to have that feeling again in the middle of the day. And you've got to remind yourself, if that statement hits you that hard, when you feel that again, and when you don't want to do it and those feelings start to creep in, you got to remind yourself, in the heat of the moment during the day, those eyes are still watching me. And you got to keep going back to it. There might be days where you have to go back to it 50 times But if the 50 times keeps you focused in the environment to take action, ultimately you'll win and battle through the adversity or challenge you face.
I think it also has to be real to you, right? We hear all these clever, contrived sayings online and the cute memes and the quotes and and I have them too for our organization. I'm sure you have certain things that you say repeatedly that people have come to know. But then other people adopt them because they're quote unquote supposed to, but it doesn't hit hard, right? It's not the same as your mother's name, or in this case, the way I might feel about seeing that phrase, your kids are watching you. So it's got to be something that you actually, that moves you, that drives you, that burns you, if you will.
Yes, that's the burn. And it's individualized. Like somebody could say, wow, that's really powerful. Ben's story, like that's so moving to hear that. But Ryan, if I made the recommendation to you tomorrow, put Janet Fishman Newman legacy on your phone,
Right.
you'd wake up the next day like that's not going to motivate you. And so people have to realize it might take time to find what that burn is. And I have plenty of people who say, I've never been through challenge. I've never been through adversity. I say, I wouldn't want anybody to go through what I've had to go through to create what my burn is. I hope you haven't had to see the things that I had to see, by the time I was an 8-year-old boy. But if you haven't had that challenge, you're struggling with what the burn is. I love asking people this question. Grab your future and bring it to today.
Mm.
Everybody sees something that's in their future, right? So you're single. I don't have kids. I don't have this. Great. But you want a future, don't you? Do you want kids? Do you want to own a company one day? Design something that you want to fight for, and that can become your burn. But these people who just decide, I don't want to spend any time on it, it's easier to just tell you, I don't have clarity around it. That's just weakness allowing you to choose to not take action. At some point in time, you have to get clear. You have to have these conversations with yourself, and you have to be open to some of the discussions or questions that are going to cause you to think differently so that you can then choose different action that ultimately leads you to the life that you were destined to lead.
Yeah. Well, you've talked a little bit about standards, creating your standards, and I'm curious how you do that. Sometimes always we're in the place that we know, right? And we may not know what we're fully capable of. So how do you begin to identify what kind of standards you want to conduct yourself by?
So I mentioned that I wasn't going to mention this, but I'll give a little tease for it. So my next book is actually in the process of being written, and it's a book around this concept. I think standard has become this buzzword, Ryan, and everybody says standard. You could hear, in the March Madness tournament, people are getting done after the game, and we just we live to the standard every day. And some people have understood and they've defined what that standard is. But for a lot of people, it's just become this buzzword and people don't know what it is. So we're actually writing a book that defines what the standard is. And it breaks down all the different components of the importance of having a standard, defining what your standards are, and then choosing to attack those standards. And then there's a 4-step process that comes down to the problem, the planning, the performance, and the payoff, and understanding how these different elements of the standard in your life, once you create yours, it becomes a repetitious cycle of attacking that standard day after day after day, knowing that that's what's going to cause you to win. As I've never been more excited about writing a book. I can't wait for this one to come out. So I can only give you so much, but we are finally going to answer that question that it's no longer a buzzword. It's actually going to be people understanding how to define what their standard is and then give them the confidence to go attack it.
Yeah, I like that. I like the confidence to attack it, but also to uphold it, because I think all too often, most of us have a thought process around what we will and will not tolerate. We've thought about that. We've thought about it ourselves and other people, how they'll treat us, how we'll treat ourselves. But most of the time when it gets hard, it's challenging, or there's a temptation, our so-called standard or our principles, they kind of go by the wayside. And in that case, they really weren't principles or standards to begin with.
That's right. But that goes back to, well, I say I have standards, but if you can't articulate what those standards are, well, then you don't have standards.
Right. Right.
You just have a word that you say because you heard it on TV, and it's, well, successful people say that they have a standard, but if you can't articulate to me what that standard is, or the process of how you attack that standard, then you don't have a standard.
Do you think people, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why somebody might let their standard for themselves go. Do you think that one of the reasons, or how prevalent is it to be so consumed with the mediocrity around you that you might offend somebody, or you might make them feel uncomfortable, or you're worried about their opinion because you have an elevated standard, or because you're performing to the degree that you are? Does that weigh on people's minds?
I think I think everybody's different. It's a multitude of different reasons, but at the end of the day, once again, I define success by your ability to look in the mirror one day at a time and say, today I've given it my very best. So when you actually do that, there's no life of mediocrity. I mean, if you're really looking at yourself in the mirror, it doesn't matter what somebody else thinks. It doesn't matter what somebody else does. I'm not asking you to compare yourself or to go be somebody else. I'm just asking you to be your best. And I think people tend to compare, or they find comfort. Well, if they're letting themselves off the hook, then maybe it's okay for me to let myself off the hook. Well, then, okay, well, you have to look in the mirror then and be honest and say, I let myself off the hook because being my best really isn't that important to me. And I know this is tough stuff to hear, but it's the truth. And then I think there's another camp of individuals who they take their past success. This is being seduced by success. And they live off of that past success as long as they possibly can without having to do the work today. And I think that comes out in, like, for me in my work. So tomorrow I'll go see the Michigan State football team. Last year in my work with Michigan State football, I showed up and I had this long run of straight workout days, right? Well, today is 1,369 straight days that I've worked out. I promise you tomorrow I will work out before I get on that plane. It'll be 1,370. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that when I was there months ago, I had a string that was in the 1,100 days.
Right.
I haven't made a choice to stop working. It's like, well, I'm in good shape. At one point in time, I was a good example for these kids. If I stop doing what I know shows that I'm an example of discipline for these young men, how in the world can I have a conversation with them about being disciplined and doing what they say they're going to do? Ryan, it goes back to the environment. I've created an environment where I want to be an example for these players. I want to go and get under the bar on the bench press, and I want to literally lift with these guys if they're lifting after practice and they want to get some sets in, because that's going to be the differentiator. There's speakers who come in, and then there's the performance coach who comes in and his ass gets under the bar and he pushes weights with us and he strains with us. And as a 44-year-old man, I might not push as much weight, but I'm going to get my ass under that bar and I'm going to push weight. But I'm going to do that like tomorrow. It's not, hey, I used to be in shape to be able to do this. If you're living in, I used to be able to do this, trying to help and push and challenge somebody to get a result today, in my world, that doesn't work. Like, that's just how I think about things. And so I think if you're going to be in this world of coaching and encouraging, like, you have to show up and be your best too. I can't just pick and choose my days. I have to do what I say I'm going to do. If you were to say to me, Ben, great story about the alarm clock. How did you wake up today? It's so funny that you asked that, Ryan. I actually did hit the snooze today. I decided to skip my workout today, and I had a fat stack of pancakes with extra maple syrup today. I mean, if those were my answers, then I'm a fraud. And so I've forced myself into an environment that when I show up for that first call of the day, whether it's with you, whether it's with a coaching client, whether it's somebody else, I'm going to have done the things that I said I was going to do. Otherwise, I am a fraud for having a conversation with you about accountability. And some people might say that that's extreme, but that's the only way that I know how to show up.
Well, and look, all of us fall short, and you said it too, but I guess the key here is that when you do, recognize as quickly as you possibly can and get your ass back on track to restore that integrity gap.
And it's not that we don't make mistakes. Sometimes you choose to fall off, right? If I'm not doing 75 hard, I love pancakes. So I've become disciplined to know, like, as much, that's why I always use the pancake example. Like, on a Saturday afternoon, Ryan and I might be going to an event together. I might be like, man, I've been getting after it. I've been great on my nutrition. Like, brother, I'm cheating this morning. I'm going to have a big fat stack of pancakes. If it's on a Saturday morning, guess what I'm doing on Sunday? I promise you I'm not eating pancakes again. And so I think that's where the discipline comes in. It's not that we don't fall off. It's not that we're not human. It's not that we don't decide to live, but it's like, I know that the way that I'm wired, if I start eating pancakes every day, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And so I think it comes down to becoming disciplined even when you cheat, right? So the cheating, it's not, I'm going to eat pancakes for a week in a row. No, it's like, if I'm going to eat pancakes, that's one day. I'm going to enjoy the pancakes and I'm back at it.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, you were talking about you, and you've mentioned a couple times now this idea of process. And as I hear you talk about your training streak, what's beautiful about that is that you no longer have to worry about the result, because the result, is just going to take care of itself. I mean, how could you not have massive results when you do something effectively for over 1,000 days? I mean, it would be impossible if you tried to produce a result that was less favorable if you're doing favorable work for that long.
And when you do these things, and I'm not saying to anybody you have to do my workout. There's
Sure.
people who work out way harder than I do, but this is not like I do 20 push-ups a day. I mean, the workout takes 45 to 50 minutes every single day. It's 10 minutes of planking, it's wall sits, it's 350 jumping jacks in a row, it's 350 air squats in a row. It is not easy. But to your point, when I do that, like, there's no getting out of shape. Like,
Right.
it's not, it's creating an environment. It's not possible to get into bad shape when I do that every day.
Well, and there's the other side of it and I've said this, and I've actually dialed my fitness stuff in over the last several months. And I've told myself I have to get out of shape or get in shape. Well, what does that mean? That means I got out of shape, which was not the right thing to do. And if you're always doing the right thing, you need to get into nothing, right? You're already there. It's the saying, how does it go? If you're always ready, you never need to get ready.
Yep.
Awesome.
100%.
So one other thing I wanted to ask it, and I think you briefly touched on this, and maybe I just missed it, but it seems like you had some sort of a framework for areas of life that men or that your clients or the people you're working with operate in. I think you said one was professional, and I think another one you said is of service. Are these areas of life that you direct people to work in?
Yeah, so I call it your Prizefighter day, and you actually break it down to what are the one or two or sometimes three things that when you do these every day personally, they cause you to win. What are the one or two or three things professionally that when you do them every day, it causes you to win? And then what is the one or two things that you can do that are of service? And John Wooden, another one of those arguably great coaches to ever walk the face of the earth, led the UCLA Bruins to 10 championships in 12 years, wrote more best-selling books in his 90s than 99% of best-selling authors. John Wooden used to say, you cannot have a great day till you've done something for somebody else with no expectation of anything in return. And so that's part of what I try to encourage people to do in this broken world that we live in today, is be one of those individuals that's actually looking to do something, not for money, not for recognition, but doing it because the world needs more love, doing it because the world needs more people to share the gifts that they've been given. And so I just encourage people to build out those days so that it helps them define what it means to win every day, so that when you look in that mirror at the end of the day, you can say, I hit it, I won, on to the next day. And if for some reason you fall short, you are not a loser. It doesn't mean that your life is on the wrong track. One of the great lessons I learned from another former coach of mine, Dr. Selk, he used to say, you got to ask yourself the question, what can I improve tomorrow based upon my performance today? So if you fall short, it encourages you to figure out before you put that head on the pillow, what can I improve tomorrow based upon my performance today? Did I call Ryan and spend 45 minutes talking about this amazing March Madness, best tournament ever, no number one seeds, look at all these low seeds, this is amazing? Like, did I spend 45 minutes, which kept me from doing what I needed to do to win? If that's the case, then tomorrow, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be a friend, doesn't mean I'm not going to have conversations, but I realized I didn't need to spend 45 minutes. We could have talked about it for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that 30 minutes would have given me the ability to do the things that I know I need to do to win. So it's, it's discipline, it's focus, it's intentionality. A lot of people aren't willing to do it, but a lot of people actually don't want to win at their highest level. As I mentioned earlier, they just say they want to win at a very high level.
Yeah, we want the results without the work, right? It'd be nice to say I'm winning at the highest level, but when it comes to doing that work, that discrepancy is where the real challenge is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Ben, I appreciate you. Let the guys know as we wind down today where to connect with you. Obviously, it sounds like you've got a book coming out in the fall. So we'll stay tuned. We'll have you back on the podcast to talk more about that and get into depth on that. But let the guys know where to connect with you.
So at Continued Fight, that's the Instagram handle, which is probably the very best way for us to stay connected. And then our website is bennewman.net. But at Continued Fight, you'll get updates on the book. You'll get updates if we're throwing events, all kinds of things. And you're getting me every day. So I'm active on there every single day. If you're getting videos, that's our team, Tyler, from our company, Legacy Media, that does all of our branding and videos and everything. But it's me interacting every single day. So I look forward to seeing you over there.
Awesome. Well, I've been inspired by what you're sharing, and I'm glad we finally made this work. Like I said, long time coming, but we finally made it work. So
I
this one's going to
appreciate you,
resonate.
brother. I appreciate how you show up. I appreciate the example that you set. And I know when you look at that phone every day, you're already doing that for your children. So just keep doing it.
I will. Trying to. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.